3 kids vanished. No sound, no struggle. Just gone. And the last person who saw them was the man who never lied. He smiled and said nothing. They used to call him Mr. Heller. You'd see him sometimes, not often. Mostly through a window, behind a curtain, watering roses, always alone, always polite. The kind of neighbor you forget to remember until he's the only one left. Same cardigan every day. Brown with elbow patches. Same slow walk down the driveway. Measured. Careful. Like his feet remembered a rhythm no one else could hear. He never rushed. Never raised his voice. When he spoke, it was quiet. Chosen. Like each word had to pass through layers of approval before it left his mouth. No one really knew him, but everyone liked to say they did. He's just an old man, people would whisper when the lights were off and kids got too curious. A teacher, I think. Retired. Keeps to himself. His house sat 2 doors down from mine. Red brick, roof heavy with moss, ivy clawing up the corners like green fingers. It was still. Like the house held its breath, and so did he. You'd see him in that window, watching, always watching. Not staring, just being. No one thought it was strange. Kids passed his yard every day. They'd run, laugh, shout, jump the fence like it was nothing. A shortcut between places that felt safer than school. Sometimes he'd wave, sometimes he'd smile, and sometimes he didn't move at all. Just sat there, watching, silent. Like he was waiting for a memory to return. I talked to him once, only once. He said, "Truth is easier than fiction. You only have to remember what you saw." I asked, "So you've never lied?" He looked at me for a long second. His eyes were pale and still, like river stones in cold water. "No," he said, "not even the small ones." Back then, he was just a background detail, a still frame in a moving world. But now the street remembers. The way he smiled when they asked where the children went, and the way his silence echoed louder than any scream. It was the kind of summer that lives in photographs. Sidewalks warm enough to burn bare feet. Sprinklers ticking like soft machines. Bicycles squealing around corners, chasing nothing. Children ruled the street, loud, wild, free. They built chalk cities, launched water balloons like tiny comets, fell, cried, laughed, kept running, and every day, they passed his house. Mr. Heller's yard was their shortcut. Low white fence, path of flat stones. The fastest way from one adventure to the next. He never said no. Never came out to scold. Just sat by the window. Same chair, same time. Watching like it was his favorite show. Sometimes he waved. Sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he smiled like he knew something you didn't. I remember once, my daughter looked up from her scooter and whispered, "He's always there. Like, always. Does he sleep?" I laughed. Told her not to be rude. But something about the question stayed with me. He came to the block party that year. Brought oatmeal cookies, no nuts. Wore a gray blazer over his cardigan, like someone dressing up as himself. He told a joke. No one laughed, not because it wasn't funny, but because the way he said it felt like he didn't want laughter. Just silence. He left before sunset. People said he used to be a teacher. Biology. Back when kids dissected frogs instead of emotions. No family, no wife, no kids of his own. Just roses, books, and that quiet look in his eyes. The kind of man you wouldn't call kind, but wouldn't call dangerous either. Just still. I asked him once why he always sat in the window. He said, People reveal more when they think they're unobserved. Then added, but children don't hide. They just are. That sentence rattled around in my head for weeks. Still does. One of the kids, Ava, I think, left a stuffed toy on his walkway. A blue elephant, weather-beaten and missing one eye. It stayed there for 3 days. Then it was gone. No one saw who picked it up. Ava never asked for it back. And now, looking back, that's the first moment I can't explain. But at the time, it was summer. Kids were loud. Old men were quiet. And no one thought twice about the house with the ivy. Until the day the shortcut led nowhere. It was a Thursday. I remember because the trash bins were still out. They disappeared around 4:10 p.m. Daylight sharp, air warm, nothing unusual. And then they were gone. 3 kids, Ava, Milo, and Ben. Their backpacks were found beside the corner store, still zipped, still clean, phones inside. One still playing music. Their bikes were locked to the rack, neatly, like they meant to come back. But they didn't. There was no scream, no sound, no sign of a struggle. Just a silence that spread. We checked the obvious places, the park, the woods, the drainage tunnel under the bridge. Nothing. They had vanished between frames, and someone had seen them. Mr. Heller. When the police came, he answered the door like he'd been expecting them. No surprise, no panic. Just opened it and waited. They asked if he'd seen the children. Yes, he said. They were playing. Then they ran off, toward the woods. His voice was calm, even, polished like a pebble. He looked them in the eye and smiled. But something didn't sit right, because we checked the cameras. The Thompsons across the street had a doorbell cam, wide angle, grainy, black and white, and it showed the kids, running, laughing. One of them, Ben, chucked a ball. It bounced through Mr. Heller's gate. They chased it, reached the fence, stopped. Then the footage glitches, a flicker, a skip, and when it returns, they're gone. No kids, no ball, no running, just the gate, closed, still. Seconds later, Mr. Heller steps outside, wearing gloves, holding a watering can. He walks to the roses, waters them, slowly, then turns, looks toward the camera, only for a second, then walks back inside. That clip got passed around the neighborhood, like a ghost story. We watched it frame by frame. We zoomed, we enhanced, we whispered. But it always ended the same way. Gate, glitch, empty space, and Heller, smiling. That night, no one slept. The world didn't make sense anymore. Because if he wasn't lying, then where did they go? He didn't flinch. Not when they knocked, not when they asked, not when they showed him the footage. He opened the door like he already knew the script. The detective spoke gently. No uniforms, no handcuffs, just questions. He answered them all. Calm, precise, like he was grading a test. They came through the gate, he said. They laughed, one of them tripped, then they ran off toward the trees. He described their shirts, their shoes, even the scratch on Milo's knee. Not one hesitation. It was perfect, too perfect. One of the officers asked, "How did you notice the scratch?" Mr. Heller smiled. He limped, just slightly. His voice was soft, not defensive, not proud, just certain, like he'd watched the moment 100 times in his head. That's when people began to worry, because the more he talked, the more it felt like rehearsal. His story didn't evolve, didn't shift. Every retelling was identical, word for word, like a recording. Neighbors whispered. He's never lied, someone said. Maybe we're wrong. But something gnawed at all of us. That strange, echoing truth. Honesty isn't the same as innocence. The police returned. Again, then again. Each time, same performance. Polite, cooperative. No lawyer, no anger, no tears. Just that one steady story. They were here, then they weren't. I watched them go. But something had changed. You could feel it. The birds stopped landing in his yard. The children crossed the street earlier. Even the light around his house seemed paler. He still watered the roses, still trimmed the hedge, but the air near him felt wrong. I saw him one morning, standing in the garden, hose in hand, water spilling uselessly onto the stone. He wasn't moving, just staring. At the spot where the kids had stopped, his eyes were open, but he looked like he wasn't in them anymore. Then came the second footage. Not of the kids, of him. Midday, Tuesday. He walks out the side door, holding a black trash bag, gloves, rubber boots, expressionless. He heads toward the woods. Camera catches him for 4 seconds. Then trees swallow him whole. That clip never made the news. But we all saw it, and no one spoke of it. Because we didn't know what was worse, that he was hiding something, or that he wasn't. I started watching him, not just glancing, watching. The way he moved, the way he blinked, the way nothing ever surprised him. It felt like gravity, like he was the center of some quiet pull I couldn't break from. I sat at my window every morning, pretending to read, pretending to live, but always looking. And he knew. One day he turned his head, slow, deliberate, and looked straight at me. Not a glare, not a smile, just acknowledgement. Like we were sharing something we hadn't agreed to share. That night, I dreamed of footsteps on gravel, and the sound of a voice, soft, even, calm. I don't lie. It echoed through an empty hallway that looked like our street. Only the houses were all hollow, and all the windows were watching back. The next time I saw him was at the store. He was standing in the cleaning aisle, bird seed in one hand, a bottle of bleach in the other. He saw me, smiled like we were old friends. I asked, "Do you know what happened to them?" His smile didn't change. "They were looking for something," he said. I felt the air go cold. What were they looking for? He held up the bird seed. "A way out?" There was silence between us. One of those silences that feels like it's listening to you. Then he leaned in slightly. His voice dropped. I didn't lie to them, not once. He tilted his head, like examining a puzzle. I showed them where to look. It's not the same as leading, is it? I didn't answer. He didn't need one. As he turned to leave, he paused beside the drain cleaner, tipped the bottle toward the light, read the label like scripture, then said, mostly to himself, "People think truth is safe, but they forget." He looked at me again. Truth opens doors, sometimes the wrong ones. He walked away, and I just stood there, in that aisle full of bleach and seed, wondering if there were rules I didn't understand anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, turning his words over like broken glass. I don't lie. He kept saying it. And maybe that was true. But maybe the problem was never in what he said. It was in what he refused to say. They never found the children. No bodies, no clothes, no sign. Just silence. The kind that stretches into the walls of your house. The kind that gets into your dreams. The police came one last time. No headlines. No handcuffs. Just one more polite conversation. Same answers, same face. They left with nothing. And he stayed. Mr. Heller didn't move, didn't hide, didn't change a thing. He repainted his fence, trimmed his roses, sat in his window, like nothing had happened. But the street changed. No one took the shortcut anymore. Children walked the long way around. Some families moved away. The mailman stopped making eye contact. And the birds kept coming. Every morning, he scattered seed across the lawn. Every morning, they came. Not one or two, dozens, sometimes more. They landed without fear, waited, and he would speak to them, quiet words, rhythmic, almost like prayer. One day, I watched him from across the street. He looked up, met my eyes, and I swear, there were 3 small shadows standing behind him, just outlines, faint, like memories that refused to leave. I blinked, and they were gone. He smiled, nodded, and went back inside. That night, I sat in the dark for hours. No lights, no sound. Just thinking about the things he'd said. About truth, and silence, and doors. I remember his voice. Flat, honest, undeniable. Lying is saying what isn't true. Then softer. Almost to himself. But silence is just where truth waits. And now, when I pass that house, I don't look through the window. I look at the birds. And I wonder what they've been told.